Hello, and welcome back to another fab episode of Diaries of a Six-Figure Coach podcast. I'm super excited because I have an incredible guest here, Martina. She's an amazing creative content director, branding artist, copywriter, and coach. I personally can attest to her incredible skill set because over the past 12 months, she's supported me in my business with copywriting and with some direction and just being able to brainstorm for some content idea and creative direction. And she is just such a genius, and she's so talented in also cutting fluff out of your content. So I'm so excited to have a conversation about her journey. And the cool thing is too, this has been a journey of co-creation because she was also one of my incredible strategic mastermind clients, and I had the honor to guide her on her business journey. So Martina, I'm so happy to have you on this podcast and just have a chat about entrepreneurship and content and copywriting. I feel like there's so much juice to talk about.
Oh, so much. And thank you so much for having me. And I think that that's the beauty of this space. And just, we briefly touched on this right before popping on, but, just really, and this is kind of my thing, is cutting the fluff. And I think that that's what I love about what you do is you really cut the fluff and the BS around everything, literally everything. We're not here as authentic leaders to misguide, mislead, anyone coming into our space. We're very, very authentic and real. And I think that's what's so needed right now in the online space, in the coaching space. And that's really why I wanted to work with you, because you were a no BS approach. And I say that in my testimonial to you. It's so real. You don't hide anything. You're so honest about it. And we're not trying to sell a curated life, a curated entrepreneurship experience. We're trying to sell, not even trying to sell, we're just being who we are. And that translates far beyond, the other stuff. That's what lands.
Totally. And, it's what you're saying about, this no BS approach and cutting the fluff and being authentic and vulnerable. One thing that I have found, and I'm really curious about your journey around this and also how this translates into content, because this is the thing that I'm always coming back to. I mean, I'm a content producing machine, and I know part of the reason that I had hired Martina was actually to be able to help me refine some of the things that I already had, but get a handle on, I called it the beast of a content bank that I already have, while now also creating new content that lands with me now and bringing in more vulnerable conversations. And that was the point I wanted to make. One of the things that I have found really trying to find the word, I think it's a courageous journey to continuously becoming more and more vulnerable and audacious and courageous on how fucking real we can get within our content. And I think that for a long time, or the last few years in business, I have found we've been told one side of the story. Mm-hmm. And that side of the story is skyrocketing your growth and growing fast and furiously. And, some of us have, but not many people talk about what happens when the growth comes and then you crash and burn. Very few people talk about how to actually manage money once you have it. And so there's a lot of broke entrepreneurs and coaches out there. And there's a lot of things that are not really very sexy when it comes to running a business that are required for us to be able to have the freedom that everybody's selling. And certainly, if you're coming to my Instagram, I live my life. I live my life. So you see that from my content, but I've been finding it difficult sometimes to strike the balance right between authenticity, talking and sharing about what's important and what I know people really need to be able to build their businesses, while also, giving people ultimately what they're buying into. I hate to tell you all this, but very few of you want to sit down and deal with your financial stuff in your business and you don't want to set goals and you don't want this because it's not sexy. You just want to feel into your next goal and then manifest it from your freaking sofa. And I love you for it because I'm very spiritual and I do that too. But you gotta actually take responsibility and take steps and be strategic. And it's not very sexy, but I think that like more and more I realize there's more I can talk about and more I can do. And I find like sometimes I'm like, I want to like shake people and say like, listen, I can show you all this because that's on the other side of this. But here is what's required to work. And so I find sometimes it's difficult to just strike that balance right and to be authentic enough.
Yeah. And I think
also giving people what they want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, it's like a coming down to earth. Like we are humans on earth. Like, let's just remind ourselves about that for a hot second. And every single one of us has our own unique story. And that's like really what I do. Is infusing that story, that unique story of you, your essence, your energy, your everything into your content, your copy, your creation in a vulnerable way, but also recognizing that like the shit on the other side, I don't know if I can swear, but it's just
yes.
Okay.
It's my podcast. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's real life stuff. And that's what I learned with you is like, I can be in my creative cave all day long, but at the end of the day, what do you do when the money comes? What do you do when the clients come? What do you do when you're overtaxed or, you're climbing, like you climax with a whole bunch of clients and then you crash and burn. And then, money goes away and then you come back up again. It's like, what are you doing in those places and spaces in between? And how can you share in a way that's like letting people in? You're not just creating this curated feed that's selling a life of perfection and a job or a service or a product of perfection. Like that's not the point. That's not what we came here to do as humans. We're human beings here to relate to anyone. And I told you like a long time ago, the reason I wanted to hire you is because you were relatable and real. Like I don't want to hire the coach that's like making billions because I'm not there. So how like that place in between is so like far extended that I can't even get behind that yeah, I'm probably going to sit on my ass and try to manifest like billions of dollars. Like, I don't want to do that work. Like, you know what I mean? It's hard. It's like, I think we really need to be honest with everyone that it is not for the lighthearted. It is so much work and every single day is mindset work. And you do not like, once you hit one milestone goal, mindset thing, it's like, then there's another one on the other side, and you'll see in everyone's, if you're really sharing from a place of authenticity, but like true essence of who you are, that evolution will be shown, felt, experienced on your feed, your website, your offers, your stories when you pop on. So I think it's just really, really important. And that's obviously why I relate to you so much is because you're real.
Yeah. And I think that realness, right? Like, I mean, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I always work on this. Like I ask myself often, like, how can I get more real? How can I get more, like, how can I translate that more into my message? And it's so easy to overthink it.
Yeah. And I think that's a really powerful question to ask yourself as in the audience here, whether you're sharing, writing, creating, how can I get more real? And obviously you don't have to share every element of your life and heartbreak and, all those parts, but how can you get more real that the person on the other side, the human on the other side who's going to be receiving your message, your offer, your product can actually feel like they know you, they want to work with you because you're not pretending, there's so much. That's a great question to ask actually.
Yeah, I think that it's also like, I mean, I was a leader of a big organization. I scaled a big business. And as a CEO of a company before I had my own business, I know that I was called to more vulnerability and to share what was going on and to really like get an organization to buy in. Like, that was such a big journey for me to like start this path. But vulnerability is a sign of really great leadership. and authenticity, to say, I can help you with this and I don't always have it all figured out. Right. And to also, I think it's like, and again, I want to bring this in the content of copy because I know you're so freaking brilliant at it. Like Martina is amazing. Like if you're struggling with copy, honestly, like you want to talk to Martina. Like I really mean that. Like I am a content creator myself. I'm a writer myself. I edit people's copy, like, but I need help too, and I think that oftentimes, and especially right now, like we went through years of, and maybe that had to do too with the pandemic. And then everybody was just like, life was so different. And we just all wanted to escape the reality of being locked into our homes. And for years, there was this like push on, like, don't talk about the problems and only like, sell on desire and only like talk about desire. And what I saw a lot was everybody starting to tell this story of everything that is great and also show up around everything that's great and become really sensitive to actually say what the problem is, to the point that when I would ask people, so what problem do you solve for clients? I get the like problems. That is a lot. And I'm like, well, I don't even think you know what a problem is, but like we got so like pulled into this like one side to just talk about how everything is good that you said it, we kind of lost touch to the fact that we're like humans wandering this earth and we do face challenges and we do have goals we want to still achieve and we do experience pain and we have times where shit's hard. And we can talk about this without having people feel bad about it. And in fact, I find in content, we have to address the problem. We have to address why it's a problem. We have to make a case for some things that we can do about the problem. And then we can, tell people what we can help them do to help them solve that problem. But we got to talk about the problem.
Yeah. And like, we're multidimensional, like there's so much going on in every single one of our lives individually, and like you were saying, like there's some parts of your life can be like exceptionally amazing. And then there's other parts that can be falling apart, and I think we need to really recognize how to tie those in and marry them in a way that feels good for you, but also, create, share, refine, and edit the parts that someone else can come in and say, oh my God, you get me. Like you're not just standing, and like when you were saying that, like the thought process that came to my mind was this like guru mentality of like, I'm up here and here are all my minions. And that's the savior. And that's not it. Because even look at you and I, like we're each other's clients. Like you are in your zone of genius, I'm in mine. And like, that is a marriage in itself of like, you know what I mean? Balance. Yeah. And so I think that that's really important to share right now online, especially with everything going on, that nothing is perfect. Nothing is always as it seems. Everything can be a highlight reel, but can you open up to your audience, your potential dream clients, that you're not perfect, that like you've lived a life. You've lived a life and you know how to help people because you've lived a life, because you've refined your craft so like well, because it's a passion in it. You can't not, so I'm not sure where that what's going.
Yeah. I mean, it's like lived experience versus theory, right? Like, and I think this is also, and I would love to, maybe you have some insights that you can share there, because one of the things that I have found, and there's a lot of coaches listening to this podcast, and they're building their businesses, and a lot of service providers too, is that like, obviously we all start somewhere, right? And I think that we have to recognize that we all start there, but we all have lived experience. And then we all have the way we do things or tools we bring in that we use. and that we got to start to test. But as we do them, right, there is an experiential part to what we do. And we don't always, I think this is one thing here that I'm like, how can we tie in our lived experience and our lived perspective through what we share in our content so people can connect with it on like an emotional level, on a relatable level, when we're, for example, a coach, right? Like somebody might become a health coach, but they may have not necessarily struggled with their health, but they just are passionate about that, right? And they're offering something that will elevate somebody's life and somebody's experience, right? Tremendously. And so how can we, like, if we don't actually have lived it yet, how can we draw inspiration from life and still make a case for, how we're helping clients? Because I think sometimes that's also where we're getting so hung up on, like, not everybody can teach you, processes. Like for me, it's like, I can teach you a lot of things about business, and what I teach is lived experience for me because I have a lot experience in business, both in my own business and in corporate, but not everybody has that, right? And so we're building the lived experience, we're building through client experience, but how can we draw inspiration to be more relatable for our content when we maybe don't have that own personal story around, when we don't share our client journey? Essentially, that's what it is. Sorry, that was like a long freaking window way of getting that, but
no, I think, as you were saying that, the thing that came up for me is the power of storytelling, and I think that it doesn't have to be the exact story, the exact lived experience, the exact trauma, problem, anything that the person on the other side that's maybe reading your content, experiencing your content, needs to be like, oh, like I've also, been through a breakup. I've also been through a divorce. It's like, no, it's actually the leadership that took you through that is going to evoke the emotion that creates like that connection, that deeper, intimate connection. So it's the power of storytelling. And I think that's what sets everyone apart, because everyone's story is so unique, and it's not necessarily like the face value, word for word, exact, thing that they're going to connect with. It is like, she is willing to be seen, be heard, be witnessed, to share, to open up. It's that like, what's the word? Results, if you will, that the people feel, that evokes something, that activates something in them. And it doesn't have to be like, it could be like, I have a cat and I have a dog, or I have a cat and pasta. You know what I mean? Like, you can, honestly, it's crazy, but there's a way in which you can tie those together powerfully, that sends a message and creates that like through line between you and the client. So I think storytelling in any way, if they are looking for a leader, they will find a leader in you through the power of your story and sharing.
I love that. And I think that's so key, right? Like, I mean, you do that a lot too. You share your story and you share your own experiences. And then ultimately, right, like you are a creative director and you're a copywriter, right? And you help people with their brand. And, your feed is like also, yes, you share valuable content all the time, but like, it's not like 5 tips here, 3 tips there, right? Like it's a very different approach, right? Where it's like, we can feel what you're doing through the way you're showing up and sharing.
Yeah. And I think, and I just wrote a post on this, and it's like, there's a piece and part of you. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you are listening to this podcast, if you're wanting to, there's a piece and part of you within your body, within that, like, can't not do what you came here to do. It's like, it's oozing out of you. It's like drawing you, it's pulling you. And I know that there's so much intentionality behind that. And that is why I share the way I share, the way I even like the aesthetics. It's somewhat curated, but somewhat open and messy. It's not perfect, but it's the intentionality behind your why. Like, why the hell did you show up to do this? Why the hell is this urge that's like bursting at the seams? Like, you can't not share who you are when you are so rooted in your purpose, your integrity, and who you are. Like, and that is it. That is like the secret sauce. It's like, truly being rooted, and you're not hiding behind eloquent words or fluffy content or copy. You're not just doing a reel because everyone's doing the same reel. It's because it's you that's being exuded. Like, I always think, I've never done this. I think I've done this like once, where you're like jumping around and following the same like moves or whatever. I can't personally. I can't, and it's just not me. You know what I mean? And it can be someone else, and that lands with someone else because it's their energetic match. And we're talking about energy here. And I know that there's, like we're talking about energy and strategy here, which is, you can't have one without the other. You just can't. And that's something I so learned through Teresa and being in the Strategic Mastermind, is like, you have to have somewhere for the energy, the intention, the story, everything to go. There needs to be that foundational piece for it to be delivered, received, experienced, and, like, make that impact. And if you have that, you have everything.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's, and I think, to your point of the energy and the strategy, right? Like, it's like when we approach things like writing, for example, like content writing, and we have no concept of how to put it together, right? Like, you say storytelling, and people probably think of like writing a novel, but like, that's not it. Like, you can tell a story in one sentence. And that story in one sentence can connect with your ideal audience. It can like address the problem that you're solving, how you're solving it, and like why it matters, right? Like, you can actually, like, if you learn how to do this, right, there is a strategy and a structure around writing that can hold you. So then you can infuse your magic, your authenticity into those words. But there is something that can hold you through it. And there is a guidance around that, even with content, right? Like, you and I often have conversations around, it's not always coming up with new stuff. It's taking all the things that are already there and elevating them, making them better, like rewriting them, like, it's like, I have so much content that's amazing. Like, I actually went through my Instagram all the way to the beginning, and I was laughing. But I wrote some things a few years ago, and I was reading them yesterday, and I was like, wow, that was like really good.
Yeah, and it's so relevant.
And it is still relevant. And I think this is all the journey, right? But when we don't have that, when we don't have the guidance from, like, if we're not, like, listen, I think there's a lot of people that really struggle with writing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And obviously there's tools that we can use that can help us with writing. And I know that's, like, things that as copywriters, you're now facing creative challenges too, right? Around people using AI to write and all of that. But the reality is, like, a computer can write you a start, and they might be able to help you begin, but you still got to infuse you into it, because otherwise you're just going to sound like a robot on the instant, and it's not going to work, right? Like, this is not going to work. Like, if it's not coming from you, there is a disconnect there. So this is where my conversation becomes energetic too, right? But I think the struggle comes in with writing is that you have no, like, I'm saying you, but like most people that I meet struggle with writing because they lack the strategic foundation to understand who are they talking to, what are they talking about, and then why, also why are they talking about it? Why are they doing the work that they come here to do? And it can be tricky to write when you don't even have any sort of framework on writing. And, you talk about a strategic approach to content. And, you talk about the fact that there is a strategy behind telling stories, right? And we're not just telling stories to connect with people, but also, yes, in business, telling stories that have people want to buy from you. And again, it's an art. And to say, like, this is the thing that I would love your perspective on. I have found that like somehow when it comes to being entrepreneur, a lot of people have just decided that we figure it all out by ourselves. And there has become this narrative around, it's just normal that you fly by the seats of your pants and you just got to try all these different things. And like, you just struggle your way. And if you keep hustling hard enough, eventually it works. Like keep showing up, hustle through, and eventually it'll work. But like a doctor would never like a surgeon would never walk into a surgery room and do heart surgery without having spent years learning about to have heart surgery. Yet as entrepreneurs, we like go into the surgery room every day and like, let's cut this heart open. And hopefully I can figure out how to fucking not fuck this up, but like, it's like, why do we do that, right? And no freaking doctor is in the surgery room by themselves.
Exactly.
But somehow as entrepreneurs, we go and do this thing and like we approach everything from this like, oh, I'll find a quick fix, and I do this instead of like actually saying, hey, content is an area, it's hard for me and I gotta learn it. Because if you learn it, it's like a game changer.
Yeah. And think about the time, the energy, the effort. I had a client and we were just chatting and I said, how long does it take you to write a post? And she said 5 hours. 5 hours. Because that's not her zone of genius. That is not it. She has a beautiful other, piece of her that is like, I've hired her, and I think that's it, is like, can we get off this, I want to say like high horse that we can do it all? Like we can't do it all. If you really want to run a successful business, like I'm going to be blatantly honest with you, you cannot do it all. And yes, there are starting points. And yes, there are pieces and like parts of, things you can find for free and supportive tools. Absolutely. But at some point, if you do want to expand and scale and reach more people, you need to get some support, whether it is one person or whatever. I have a team, you have a team, and like sometimes those teams cross paths because I trust in your zone of genius. And for me, that happens to be copywriting and content creation and creative direction. And I can see the pieces and parts of your wording, your feed, your website, your sales pages that aren't landing. And why spend 5 hours writing to not connect with someone, to not land, when you could have asked for that help and support? Can you imagine spending 5 hours with your family instead? Can you imagine spending 5 hours reading a book that you actually wanted to read? Like all of these other, we're getting pulled in all these directions. And for me, it was always like this strategy. Like, and again, like before working with Teresa, like with yourself, like a launch work back schedule wasn't my jam. I was really flying by the seat of my pants. I was like, I'll just put these posts out and hope that it works. And like, I kind of know the strategy and the structure, but like, I don't know. But until you actually get real with yourself, and I mean real with yourself, and sit down and do like you said, the unsexy work, like the emails that go out, the creating the links, all those things, nothing, like it's so much more time and energy and money actually wasted than if you just done the damn thing. And
and I think that's the thing, and I think to your point, there's stages, there's before we scale, we got to grow, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you're beginning your business, you're in a growth stage. But even at that growth stage, like the more you do yourself, the longer it's going to take you to actually get to a point where your business is generating sales. So you can actually pay yourself, which yes, you are supposed to pay yourself during the growth phase, even if you reinvest surplus back into your business. I learned this the hard way. Okay. I honestly can admit, like, I didn't pay myself for my business for a long time. And I put everything back into the business because I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to like just explode, And that was great. But like, I've always known, right? Like investing really works. But even for myself, as somebody who's a strategist, I was really like ignorant to a lot of the things and just a lot, like, kind of went for a long time with like, I'm just going to do what feels good and I'm just going to go this way. And then eventually, like, I figured out that wasn't working. And then, even with launches, I was like, okay, like let's master launches. And I launched and launched and launched and launched. And then I started teaching people how to launch, right? And they started launching and it's seeing results. But the thing is too, when you don't know how to launch something, launches can be really exhausting and lead nowhere, right? And so again, launches require a lot of thought and intention and a lot of writing, content. Like there is you gotta hit the right point at the right stage of that journey. And again, like you can, test and trial, but most people don't even stop to see what worked and what didn't. So we're always spinning our wheels. And that can become very exhausting. And not to say that it can't work, but in a growth stage where you have a lot of time, like if you're trying to get to, making your first $50,000 a year and you have no clients, like you're brand new to business, you have all the fucking time of the world. Like, let's be really clear, sipping margaritas by the beach, fine. But like, can you write 5 pieces of content before you go to the beach? Like, let's talk about this. Do you have something just like, do you have foundation? Do you have office? But there is growth, right? But to actually get and set yourself up to get from that 50 to 100 and then, multiple hundreds of $1,000s in sales and manage your money, you won't be able to do it alone long term because like Martina said, that time is valuable. And I will say to you, you want to spend 5 hours writing, every freaking day. Like if you spend 5 hours writing one post, you know how much money you leave on the table because there's no like, and I'm just going to say this. This is a post coming. Probably will be dropped by the time this airs. But like, I think what we have to realize is that if, Sally Sue, who makes $9 million a year and has an audience of 50,000 people and has literally been building this business and expertise for the last, I don't know, make it 5 years because crazy growth is possible. Yeah, she can drop one post and make $50,000 from one post. But you spending 5 hours making that post perfect, I hate to break it to you, but it's probably not going to make you $50,000 unless you're Sally Sue and you already have a freaking hot audience that you spent years building. So what you should be doing, actually things that help you build your business, right? Instead of spending 5 hours writing. So you might look at it and say, oh God, if I hire Martina and, if I get help writing and I spend all this money in writing, well, how much money are you leaving on the table because you're wasting time trying to write the one perfect post that's not happening right now instead of actually getting yourself the support you can move, right?
Yeah.
And you can get to stage of Sally Sue quicker. And by the way, do you think Sally Sue wrote that post?
She's got a team.
Yeah. And she's got processes and systems, right? Like, I think the reality is if you also want to serve more clients and scale, and then you're serving people that are already in business, that are already having clients, that are already, working towards scaling their businesses. The reality is you got to get the time back. Like you want to be able to earn more, but do less of that or replace some of the time you spend writing or creating with being able to actually serve more clients in your masterminds or more clients in your one-to-one or whatever that is that you're doing, right? But you actually have to take things off your plate. So one, you can have more capacity to serve clients, but two, you also still want to have a life.
Absolutely. And like you were just saying, Sally Sue. Nothing came from one post. Let's be real. It came from a series of stories and weaving of her, everything from prior to that one post. And everything has been leading up to that one post, that one launch, that one offer, whatever it is. And it has been strategically, woven in through weeks, months, everything, years even, to get to that one post. And if you are wishing and hoping and thinking and praying that one post, one offer, one thing is going to be it's not. It's everything that's like as a whole that has come to that one moment, maybe, and everything that's come to that one moment, maybe, has come from multiple people being on that side, on that team, on that trajectory, in that process to get to that place. And that is where I really value the the authenticity of how you share and how we share that. Like, it is not, that's not it. It's not just one picture, one reel, one this, one that, like, that's going to get you there. It's the hours that you've spent being in your zone of genius, doing the work that you came here to do, your why, supported by all of these other elements to get you to that place.
Yeah, and that's so powerful, and I mean, I've seen, you change and grow, and, your journey, and also your realizations along the way on, even like, who am I here to serve, really? And to get really clear on where is my zone of genius, and with the right people too, right? And that was a journey for you over the last year.
Huge. And that has shifted and changed so much. Like, the industry that I was really infused in has completely changed and shifted. And I've opened up to a completely different, like, clientele. Right. So, but and you got to go through it, the only way out is through. And I had to go through that process to get to where I'm at right now. And I'm very, very intentional, and I very much vet the people, not even the people, but the client, the industry that I am going to work with, because I know that that's how the magic gets created, is when we are, it's like I said, like, if you can have a coffee with your client, or you can have a glass of wine with your client, that's the client. If you're like, I don't know, then there's something that may be off. And of course, when you're beginning, you're saying yes to everyone, and you're learning your lessons, and you're going through the whole, messy middle part that you're going to go through. But you get to a point where you're like, I am not willing to sacrifice the integrity of my work for other work, client, even like what I'm writing about. I'm personally not going to write about, I don't know, something dark. You know what I mean? Like, I know that I need to be able to infuse meet who I am with the client in order to that beautiful, like, baking of a cake that's going to, like, taste so delicious for anyone that tastes it. That's how it's going to work.
Yeah. I love that. And I think too, for you, it's kind of what you touched on around the timepiece too, right? Like, as a copywriter and a creative director and all the creative work that you do, you have a certain capacity. And so, it's also really getting clear on how can you actually get to where you want to go and scale to where you want to be without, like, burning yourself out again and again and again. Because when we put a lot of, like, work in, like, when we do a lot of behind the scenes work for our clients, right? Like, you write, like, yeah, of course, it's not going to take you 5 hours to write a post, but it's still going to take your time to write a post. So there's a limit to how much you can write. There's a limit to how much can come out. And I feel like this is, was for you such a creative challenge too, right? Where you're like, hey, I am, like, exactly where my clients are too, but in a different way, right? A lot of people spend way too much time writing and not actually ever putting some of that stuff out too, because they never get to the stage of putting it out, right? But it's really through your own experience too of learning how valuable the time actually is, right? And I remember you and I having conversations, and I was saying to you, I was like, Martina, yeah, I know you help people write content, but, like, you help people get time back that they can use to actually move the needle forward in their businesses, or like, like, get their time back with family. Like you give them time.
Yeah. And
which is huge.
Yeah. And, like, not everyone is meant to be a copywriter. You're meant to do what you came here to do, right? You're not meant to sit here and write for 5 hours. You're meant to be a stylist or an IG manager or a real estate agent or whatever it is that you've come here to do. You're not, and, like, some people love writing and that's amazing. But if you're being pulled more in this idea that you have to be marketing versus like doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you're being pulled in that direction in every element, the Canva creation, the photos, the photo shoot, like all of that. There's a reevaluation of where your time is being allotted that is needed, because that is where you're going to burn out, because your energy is being fulfilled over here and it is being drained over here. Right. So that is a huge piece and a good awareness as anyone listening to this, to check in with yourself and ask yourself, where is this being really like filled up, my energy filled up, and where is it being completely drained? And if it is in writing and coming up with content ideas and prompts and how do I share, what do I share? Yeah, that's time to reach out and say, how can I either start to do this myself? How can I get some support? Or can I start to become more strategic with my time, energy, and effort?
I love that. So where do people go if they want to get more strategic with their time and effort and make life a bit easier?
Yeah, of course. So I hang out mostly on Instagram. So it's my handles at Martina Biljan, and I'm sure we'll share that in the show notes and everything. Right now, my website is doing a huge overhaul, and I'm so excited. It's like just everything is being redone right now. So website is not there, but I'll share it with you as well. It's just myname.com. And yeah, I've got workshops. I have something for everyone, truly. I have anything from free to 10K offers. So there's really, truly anything from lots of things for anyone to come into this space. You can learn how to do this yourself. You can, work with me one-to-one. There are retainer offers. There are all-encompassing offers with a social media manager that I work with, who. And so there's just so many ways in which you can do that. And even just pop onto my Instagram to see, small tips and tricks that you can start implementing, questions to start asking yourself, prompts to start working with. And yeah, lots of places to start getting your time back, your energy back, your creativity back, like all of that,
I love that. And I can personally vouch for Martina and for the social media girl, Magma, that she's working with, because Maddie is my social media manager too. So we're all co-creating, right? We're all here to support each other, but head to Martina's IG, which is Martina Biljan, Martina Biljan.
Biljan.
French, Biljan. It's a very French name. I will link it because it's really hard to say. So I'm not even going to attempt to spell it. Martina, this was so amazing. Thank you so much for being here and having this fun conversation and just talking about the reality we live as entrepreneurs, which are also, scary word a lot, content creators.
Yeah.
Right. One of the many roles we took on, not knowing that we would when we became entrepreneurs. What is one more thing that you might want to share that you haven't shared yet, or want to give people on that journey around creation and content?
Yeah, I think just being you is enough. Sharing you is enough. How you share, what you share, your story is enough. And it really is the thing that's going to help you stand apart from the thousands of other people that could be doing the same thing as you. And someone is going to want to work with you. There is someone there for you, and not to think that, you're doing this for no reason. There's so much purpose behind it. If you have an intention, if you have a why, then keep showing up. Don't hit post one time, and it can be discouraging, and I invite you to continue. I invite you to keep posting. And if you need that support with the strategy, the marketing, the creative direction, the copywriting, I'll be here.
I love that. Martina, thank you so much. This was amazing. This is a wrap for this episode. I'm so excited to bring you more juice soon. Make sure you follow Martina. Again, all her information will be in the show notes. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I'll bring it back to something Martina said at the very beginning. She hired me because of the way I show up, because of the way I share. So share that way. Don't just take what she said as that sounds nice, but no, she hired me because of that. And I hired her because of that. And I feel this is the beauty of being freaking real and being you. So don't take that as, oh, that sounds nice, but I'm not good enough. Then you need to work on that. It's another story. But you have a story, and that story is powerful, and that story will connect. So go share it. Hire Martina to help you. She's brilliant. And I will chat with you all soon.
Thank you so much also for having me. So, so grateful. This has been lovely.
Okay. Bye, everyone.